what happened to Dr. Waterman. Only this man, last to see him alive, knows. Equinox. The invisible barrier between good and evil. The invisible barrier between light and the forces of darkness. The supernatural before your very eyes as 4 teenage boys and girls fight a devil cult for their sanity, for their lives, for their eternal souls. Equinox, a story that defies logic, confounds belief. Dr. Waterman, wait! Wait!
I can't believe it. It was just a fall.
What is the secret of the 1,000-year-old book? What are the unspeakable horrors conjured by the forces of evil? What is the fiendish power of the ring that enslaves and destroys? What is the one symbol that can hold at bay the hosts of hell unleashed on earth? Equinox, proving again that there is more in heaven and on earth than is dreamt of in our philosophy. Equinox! Equinox! Begins where Rosemary's Baby left off.
From the dark and mysterious Middle Ages, full of mystery and violence, there now comes to the screen, Fear Rises from the Tomb, a curse which would bring these people to the most terrifying situations. Fear rises from the tomb.
Maria.
Fear rises from the tomb, with all the mystery and terror of medieval rites and witchcraft. The infernal powers of evil, persecuting these defenseless beings.
No! No! No!
Fear rises from the tomb. A Pro Films production. Directed by Carlos Aurez.
7 moons have passed. Today we shall take them. I want, when the supreme day comes, that they are sufficiently prepared for the sacrifice.
You mentioned playing the role of good villains, as though there was something particularly juicy about a good villainous part for you.
There is, because the villain has so many sides. I do a lecture around the country. I've been a lecturer for about 20 years now, and I do a lecture now on the history of villainy. They're always the best parts, you know. It's that marvelous thing of Gene Kerr's The Snake has all the lines, you know. Adam and Eve just stand there, but the snake's got all the lines. And the villain is usually such a many-faceted character. He's a very interesting person to study. There are all kinds of villains. There's the villain that is a villain in spite of himself. There is the villain who is a born villain. I mean, the kind who sort of were born that way. And then there are villains that are the most interesting ones, I think, who are turned to evil by fate, really, by the wounds, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Is this what led you into playing in horror movies, or is that a totally different kind of
Well,
thing.
you know, none of us who were in those films, Boris Karloff and Peter Lorre and Basil Rathbone, and all of us that have been in them, really think of them as horror films. I think of a horror film as a film that really frightens me about everyday life. The stories of violence, the stories of gangsterism in the old days.
Clockwork Orange, that kind
That's
of
right, yes, I think of that. Because most of the stories that I've done have been based on the tales by de Maupassant, Edgar Allan Poe, and Hawthorne, and things like that. And they're really classic kind of Gothic tales. And I think Boris felt that way, too. I mean, certainly Frankenstein was one of the great novels of its time. You know.
What are the satisfactions to the actor in playing in these kinds of movies?
Well, your problem is very different from that of the realist actor, because you have to make the unbelievable believable. And the other actor, the Marlon Brando, has to make the believable believable. So you have an added dimension, an added challenge as an actor.
How do you account for the popularity of these kinds of films in recent years?
Well, I heard a kid today talking at UCLA, they're doing some kind of a spook thing, and he said it turns you on, you get a high, the adrenaline goes shooting up. Well, it's true, you know, I mean, the reaction of the audience to The Exorcist is absolutely extraordinary. And I've gone to see some of the Poe pictures that I've done, and the kids just love them, you know, and so do the adults. There is a charge. It's the same charge you get out of a nursery story, isn't it, of a fairy tale.
Do you see some of your earlier movies on TV?
As seldom as I possibly can.
Why?
Well, they're kind of depressing, actually, because in the first place, I watched one the other night that I'd never seen. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to see it. And I watched it, and suddenly I realized that everybody in it was dead but me. It was terrifying. It was really terrifying, because there they were, alive and vital and exciting. They were all gone. They were all people much older than myself, fortunately.
Yes.
But it was very depressing.
I think the key thing is the recreation of that childhood moment of horror. I think you have to take an adult and bring him back to his infancy, to recreate for him what frightened him. That's why in so many horror films you have a dark house, you have the stormy night, you have the lightning, the thunder. Sex is involved in it to a certain extent as well. A child's first moments of sex. We had talked earlier when you said your child was frightened by a girl just walking down a corridor. And I said I couldn't remember which film it was, because I've had girls and men walking down corridors in many films. To me, the corridor is very important. The door at the end of the corridor was important. And symbolically, I think the corridor is the vagina. And the walking down the corridor is the entrance for the first time to the vagina. And I think two things must be happening during that walk. One, the audience must be living the moment with the actor on the screen and saying, go forward, find out what that mystery is, find out what that thing is at the end of the corridor that is so enticing. At the same moment, they must be saying, don't take another step forward, don't go there, that's dangerous, that's frightening. And I think this is, to a certain extent, first thoughts about sex.